Miss Gilbert, what year were you born?
1926, February the 15th.
February the 15th, 1926. And as best as you can remember, what are your very earliest memories?
I can remember of my mother sitting in a little old straight wooden chair, leaned back against the wall on the front porch, and she had bought some peaches and was peeling them, and as she would peel them and put them down in the pan, I got behind the chair between the wall and between my mother and would reach in the pan and sneak the peeled peaches and eat them till I got sick on them. I was about 4 or 5 years old. That's about as far back as I can remember.
Okay. Can you give us some rough idea of what life was like during this period? This was in the 2030s now?
I was born in 1926. It would have been in the 30s.
So early 30s?
Around 30.
Yeah. This is during the Depression, right?
Oh, yes.
This is in the mountains of Southwest Virginia, in the heart of Appalachia. Talking about on Jewel Ridge. Were you on Jewel Ridge?
No, it was then Dwight. D-W-I-G-H-T.
Dwight
Virginia.
Ridge? It was called Dwight, Virginia?
Dwight, and they changed it.
Is it no longer called that?
No.
What's it called now?
They changed it to Pea Patch, Virginia.
Pea Patch, okay.
And then they changed that to Jewel Ridge Route 1.
Okay, so it's modern day Jewel Ridge.
Yeah.
But at the time it was known as Dwight, Virginia.
And
can you give us a little idea of what things were like back then?
Well, if you can imagine a woman, a mother with 11 of her own little children and 2 stepchildren, raising them without a husband.
13 kids?
13 children.
Your mother had 13
my
kids?
My mother had 11, and my dad had 2 when she married him by 2 other marriages.
How did she have 11 kids?
How did she have? You don't want me to answer it that way.
Well, no, but I mean, that's crazy.
But she had them all with the midwife, no doctor.
This was a pretty standard thing during this time period to have a litter, right?
We didn't all come at one time as a litter. We were born one at a time.
But I mean, to have that many.
Well, there was no birth control, and if you live with a man and a woman lives together, and they're healthy, there's going to be children if she can have children.
I guess so.
And she got married she was born in 1900. And she got married when she was 16 years old.
My goodness.
And she didn't have, that made her 1916, and she didn't have her first child till 1919, and then she had one a year until my dad died. He was dead a year and a half. She married again.
That must have been really rough on her.
It was very rough.
Well, the child mortality rate was very high at this time. A lot of women died in childbirth, and a lot of children died at birth, didn't they?
They did.
During this time?
And she married again, and this man wouldn't stay with her. He was just in and out and back and forth, and she had 4. And finally, the last time he comes and says, Evelyn, her name was Evelyn, but he changed it to Evelyn.
Right.
He said, I've decided to come home to stay. And she said, no, you don't have a home any longer.
Right.
Which the home belonged to my daddy.
Right.
He just come in there and stayed.
Right.
And when he'd work, he didn't bring nothing in, no provisions for us. And he stole all the watches and everything he'd get his hands on of my dad's. And so anyway, she raised us by herself. And I was born in 26, my dad died in 28.
Yeah.
So we all got married at a young age, as fast as we would date somebody and fall in love, we thought, and got married.
You're getting ahead of yourself here. Now, hold on a minute. Let's back up to your toddler years, and you're 5, 6, 7 years old there. And your father died. How old were you when your father died?
2 and a half.
So you have no recollection of your dad, right?
None whatsoever.
Okay. So
he was a
mail carrier.
He was a lawyer.
And what was his name?
Newton Blair Day.
Newton Blair Day.
N-E-W-T-O-N. Blair Day.
Okay.
He was a lawyer.
He was a lawyer.
He had the mail route.
He wasn't a practicing attorney.
Oh yes.
He was a practicing attorney.
He practiced small claims.
Okay.
And he didn't have the degrees that they have today because that was back in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
But he got enough degree till he could practice like rape cases and horse theft and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Okay, so your father was an attorney and a mail carrier, and a farmer, and he passed away when you were 2 years old. And this left all the responsibilities to your mother, Eveline Day.
Davis Day.
Eveline Davis Day. Okay. And what did she do? How did she make it work? How did she take care of 13 children?
We made a garden, a big vegetable garden. We made fields of corn.
Yeah.
And we made big potato patches.
Yeah.
Sweet potatoes and arch potatoes.
Yeah.
We went to school when the weather would allow us, and when it was bad weather, me especially, I didn't get to go as much as the rest of them.
How far did you have to walk to go to school?
We had to walk about 2.5 to 3 miles each way a day.
And did you have shoes?
Well, in the wintertime, the Lord blessed her to prepare shoes for us if she had to sew the soles back on with a needle and thread. In the days of depression, there was nobody hardly had money, and what did have money was they kept it. They didn't let loose of it. They had to have it.
Right. So your life really was pretty much based around the mountain. I mean, you didn't come off the mountaintop very often, did you, when you were very young?
We'd go off to the grocery store after my dad died. He had a grocery store, and after he died, I guess
your dad had a grocery store too?
Oh, yes.
My gosh, so your dad was really a breadwinner,
Oh,
and
yes.
if he had lived, then everything probably would have been okay, even though he had 13 children to take care of.
He belonged to the Masons.
But he had no idea he was going to die so young. He didn't have any kind of insurance or anything like that.
I don't guess there was that kind of insurance.
I guess there
available
wasn't
back
at that
then.
time. There probably wasn't, unless you were living in a big city and you were really, really rich. So your mother had all the responsibilities, and what a weight to carry, what a weight on her shoulders. And you gardened a little bit, and gardened a lot, you say. And you did have some farm animals, is that right?
Yes.
What farm animals did you have there?
We had one cow to milk after my dad was gone for a little while. He had a lot of livestock, but it got away from him. And
How did it get away? What do you
well,
mean there?
My uncle bought 50 head of sheep
Uh-huh.
and never did give her a nickel for them. He come up and drove them off. Never did bring her a nickel back.
Well, that wasn't very nice of him.
Somebody said they saw him crying one day, and said they asked him what was wrong, and he said, well, nothing really. He said, I was just thinking of Newt's little children up there with maybe not a bite to eat. And said he broke down and cried out loud.
Oh,
and
good.
Said I done her wrong. Said I went up and drove 50 head of sheep off and told her I'd sell them and bring the money back, and said I kept the money.
Well, that was a pretty crummy thing for somebody to do.
And then another uncle, my dad had a big breeding bull,
Uh-huh.
and whatever they're called, and he drove that off and never did give her a nickel for it. He
So
took
you,
her hay
basically,
stacks.
after your father died, your father's brothers, amongst other people, took pretty bad advantage of your
Whatever
mom.
they wanted, they
And your mom didn't really know any better, did she?
She didn't know any better. She
Okay.
thought, she believed.
So but you were left with some farm animals. You had a cow, and what else did you have?
She would manage to keep a pig from year to year. and
She had
we'd
one
kill
pig a
hog,
year, so you would feed it all year long, and at the end of the year you would slaughter it and have food, right?
butcher it and have lard and bacon and
Okay.
what we could of it.
Okay, and what other animals did you have? Did you have chickens or anything
Oh yeah,
else?
we kept chickens
Okay,
and one milk cow.
and one milk cow? And that was it? That was it for the animals?
That's what we owned. We had to grow the corn,
Okay.
go to the fields and shuck the corn.
Did she do anything to generate income?
There was no income up there.
So, now you had government assistance, even back then they had government assistance.
Not until Roosevelt come out.
Okay, so how old were you when you guys started getting government
I
assistance?
was about 7 or 8.
7 or 8 years. This has been in the mid-30s.
And whenever Roosevelt was elected
Yeah.
on his second term,
Right.
he started a welfare system.
Okay.
And from that, her first check was $11 a month. But
And $11 would let's see, it's 2003 now. What would $11 been equivalent to back then? Would that have been like getting like $1,100?
no, I
Not
don't
quite
know.
that much?
I don't know what.
More like $500 or
I
something
don't know
like
what Medicare
Okay.
People draw, not Medicare, but Medicaid.
Okay.
I don't know what people draw as welfare.
Well, needless to
wise.
say, $11 went a long way.
$11, a 25-pound bag of flour, food, bread, flour, was 50 cents.
Yeah.
Well, she would get 2 or 3. And meal, 25-pound bag of meal, was a quart.
Now, do you have any idea how they decided how much you would get?
Yes.
How did they decide that?
I know how. It was a brand new government program and there was no money appropriated for it.
Okay.
So it would be just like right now with the money that we're trying to bring up, but the president wants us to bring up to send to this war-torn country. They don't have the money for it, and he wants us to furnish the money. So that's the way that Roosevelt fixed a program that there would be money to send to the poor people, and then the taxes would put it back in, which I'm sure it did, or it would have been broke by now.
Okay, so with the farming and with the government assistance, your mother was somehow able to take care of 13 children, and you were one of the middle children, is that right? You were kind of in the middle?
I was the next to my dad's baby.
Okay.
And then she married again and had 4 more. Yes, I guess I'd been in the middle.